If your adult children can't pay their own bills, manage their own time, or recover from failure without you rescuing them, that did not happen overnight. Sometimes as parents, we can confuse love with protection and support with subsidy. Um, Raising independent children requires something that most parents won't do. This isn't about being harsh, it's about being honest. And the honest answer is that the world is not gentle with unprepared children, and it never will be. You can bring your child up to be independent. So the first thing to note is that I have birthed and raised 7 children. My oldest child is 39, my youngest child is 20. All of my children are with my first husband, who I was married to for 22 years. We always stand unified in our parenting, and we still do. The core belief here is that your job as a parent is not, it's not about comfort, it is about competence. And if you want independent adults, then you have to raise independent children intentionally. So I'm going to walk through several ways that we did that, and I'm going to get a lot of pushback on this, I already know, but I'm just going to be really speaking from my heart here, not trying to give out any judgment. I do have a few notes, but I don't have statistics or research or anything. What I'm speaking from is 40 years of experience as a parent and raising children that I'm proud of, that are productive, happy, healthy people in society today. So it can be done, and it can be done without your guidance once they're adults. Okay, I'm Gigi Fairbanks, and this is 61 Unfinished. This is a space for people over the age of 60 who know that they're not done yet. And part of being able to fulfill your dreams and goals for this last section of your life is to not be worrying about your adult children. Most definitely not be funding their way through life. And we're going to talk about some ways you can practically do that. Okay, the first thing that we did, transportation. This needs to happen before they get to be of driving age. You need to be having this conversation. The best thing that we did to teach our kids about money was with the vehicle. We did not pay for one dime of their cars. We didn't split it, not the gas, not the insurance, not the tags and taxes, not the repairs, zero. And part of the reason that we did that is because we really wanted to raise our children with the mindset that you have to create your own safety net. Because the truth of the matter is, as parents, you're going to die. We're going to die. And we have to make sure that our kids are equipped on how to raise themselves, or how to live in the grown-up world themselves without relying on you for anything other than moral support and encouragement when they come to you for that. We'll get into a little bit more about that later. Let's talk about the car thing first. Yeah, it's a hassle. You have to start teaching them early to save so that they have enough money to pay for that car. Once you make that decision, though, everything else will start lining up. Here's the hassle. The hassle is when their car's broken down. Because let's face it, if they're going to pay for the car themselves and you're not chipping in, it's going to be a cheap car. And that's okay. Most of us started out with cheap cars, and you learn how to make do. But if the car is broken down in your driveway until they can afford to get a repair part, that's going to mean they're going to have an alternative means to get to work. Bike, walk, public transportation. You take them. That's something that you're going to have to work through with your kids. But don't swoop in and rescue them from that. Let them face that financial responsibility, and that will go so far in teaching them about money and teaching them how to be their own financial safety net. A quick thing to remember here, that Independence isn't about convenience. Um, Independence is about learning how to solve problems on your own. Okay, okay, here's a quick little story to share with you. When their car breaks down and it's sitting there and it's on you to take care of, then it becomes, we're just highlighting our discomfort. We're not highlighting the child's failure. I'm just telling you, it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but in the long run, it's a fantastic lesson to teach your child. Okay, the second one I want to talk about is cell phones. This is going to be a big area of controversy, but I'm going to say it with our kids. Here were the rules. They had to be driving, they had to be working, and they had to pay for the cell phone themselves. People can get on in the world without a cell phone. It's not going to be the end of the world if your child cannot text their friends. Okay, there are other ways to get around this. They need to meet that criteria and they need to pay for it. And part of this is why having a cell phone is not something that is owed to our kids. We don't owe them that particular tool. That is a tool that they can learn how to pay for themselves. They should be paying for the upgrades. They should be paying for the maintenance. They could be on your plan to save a few bucks, but they need to be reimbursing you every single month for that cell phone. They need to own that little piece of responsibility while they are a teen. It will go so far in helping them to take financial responsibility when they're in their 20s and 30s. It really works. A third thing that we did, no allowance. What do they do about spending money? Well, here's the thought process behind that. When you are part of a family, you contribute. A husband My husband's not going to pay me every time I do the dishes, nor am I going to pay him every time he mows the lawn, or however you divide up your household responsibilities. That's not what's important. What's important is that the children need to learn that they need to contribute just because they're part of the family. They need to do in the dishes. They need to help with doing the dishes. They need to be doing their own laundry. My kids were all doing their own laundry by the time they were 8 years old. 8. They can do it. They can clean a bathroom when they're 5 or 6. You have to take them by the hand and you show them how to do that. That's not considered a chore that they get paid for. That's just considered taking care of themselves and being a contributing member of the family. However, when the kids would come to us wanting to earn some spending money, and this would be before they would be old enough to have a, real job. I'm talking about elementary age, even up to maybe early junior high. We always would give them a paying job. So if they wanted $10 to go do something with their friends, they would come to us and say, "Hey, Mom, do you have a $10 job?" Excuse me. And we would always do that. We would always fund their request for paying jobs, and they would get paid once the job was finished. Little side note, one of my sons, Henry, who's an entrepreneur and a filmmaker, Henry would come and ask for a $10 job, and then he would outsource that job to his little sister for $3 or $4 and pocket the rest. You know what? I didn't know at the time that that was going on, but I had no problem with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. We are a family of business owners and entrepreneurs. That is capitalism at its finest, and I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. Okay, so back to the chores for a second. One of the things, the biggest thing that chores teach is responsibility. They also need to learn that with extra work comes extra income. That is the way of the world, and it's true, and it can begin at home. This builds initiative, work ethic, gives them the value, the understanding of the value of a dollar. Was a huge, huge life lesson. Don't just pay them just because they breathe. Okay, the next piece would be what I call banking and literacy. We taught our kids that 50% of everything they make goes into the bank. Now, when they're young, absolutely you should be on their bank accounts so that you can monitor that they actually are doing that. It's not what you expect, it's what you inspect. So during those early formative years, make sure that they're putting half of their money back into their bank account. You also need to be teaching them how to reconcile a bank account. They need to understand debits and credits. Um, they need to know this before they really get into high school and start earning some real money. They need to start understanding the fundamentals of basic home bookkeeping and banking. They need to learn how to live debt-free if that's something that your family is committed to. We live debt-free. We do have a mortgage on our home, but aside from that, we pay cash for our cars. We pay cash as we go along. If we don't have the money to take a vacation, enough money to pay for the vacation ahead of time, we don't go on vacation. Your children need to implement that same process, but you have to set the example for them. You have to set the example of how to live debt-free, and it's 100% doable. Now, once they get to be, I'm going to call it, before a real job. In a real job, I'm going to consider something like what they would start at 16, maybe McDonald's or a fast food restaurant or whatever the case may be. But before that, they can be, excuse me, mowing lawns, they can be babysitting, they can be house cleaning for a neighbor, they can be shoveling snow, walking a dog, lots of things that a 10 to 13-year-old is capable of doing to earn some extra money in 2 hours a week. It's good for them. It's good for them. In our household, we are a Christian family, so we believe in tithing. And if that's something that is important to you, make sure that you are teaching that to your child. So in our house, every week when we get a paycheck, wherever that source comes from, we take 10% off the top, we move that into a special account that's our giving account, and it goes in there right from the very beginning. You can teach your child to do the same thing. You don't want to teach them to be stingy, but rather frugal with their money so that they can give in great ways that would actually have an impact on someone. So we want them to be giving, but you have to save in order to give, if that makes sense. Okay, just a little story to send in here, to interject here. Um, I'm happy to say that not one time have my children come to me asking me for money, asking me to just give them money. Not when they were teens, 20s, 30s. I have 4 kids in their 30s right now. Not one time. Again, going back to raising them to be their own financial safety net, so that they are not banking on anyone else other than their own abilities, their own capabilities. You're their cheerleader. You're not their banker, right? Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick pause and give you a challenge, not with judgment, just with honesty here. This week, I want you to write down everything that you are paying for your adult kids, everything that you are managing for them, and then take a look at that list and really try to hone in on what could they actually be doing for themselves. And this is if you're still in that position of supporting your kids. Not what they want help with. They may be perfectly content with you taking care of them. But you need to break that cycle now so that you can set yourself up for your future, for everything else that you want to do with your life. You also need to give them the opportunity to figure out how to do it, on their own, because they can do it. Okay, back to this challenge. Once you've identified what your kids are capable of handling themselves, I want you to start transitioning them out of your care and onto their own plate. Move whatever that thing is that they're capable of managing themselves, and let them take ownership for that. It's not going to happen overnight. Um, don't do it angrily, but do it intentionally. And just explain to them that you love them, you trust them, you trust their decision making abilities, and you're going to help ease this transition with them taking over. If you do this early enough, you'll have it nipped before before they reach adulthood, which is what we did, which is ideally what you want. Remember that you don't have to change everything today. You just have to stop pretending like it doesn't matter, because it does matter. If you're willing to take this little challenge and do this, I just want you to drop me a note in the comments. Just say starting. That way I'll know that you're listening and that you're going to take some steps to impact not taking care of your adult child anymore. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is preparing them with the skill set that they will need later in life, that they will need to carry them into adulthood. By the time your kids are 18, they should understand time management. They should understand household chores. I'm going to jump into a little side note here. Your children are fully capable of cooking, cleaning, doing the laundry, managing their own schedules, uh, owning their own outcomes, going shopping with you, to talk about saving money and checking prices and checking labels. That should be a part of them. That should be a part of your time, taking them to the grocery store. Maybe just take 2 older ones with you, and really use that as a learning opportunity every single time you go to the store. Better yet, hand them the money that's going to cover the family meals, dinner meals, let's say, that week. Let them balance it out. Let them go to the store with them. Let them do the shopping. You've got X amount of dollars. You have to buy this list that we walked in here with pre-planned. So important to have them take ownership. As I mentioned to you before, by 8, they can be doing their own laundry. By 6, they can be unloading, putting the silverware away from the dishwasher. There are tons of things that young children can be doing: dusting the lower levels, sweeping the sweeping the floor with a little broom, even if it's a toy broom at first. Just get them started doing these things. If you wait until they're 13, you're too late. You're too late. You need to start this when they're little, when they're 3. Okay, so back to household chores. By the time they're teenagers, they should be doing the housework. You should be supervising. I'm not talking about child labor violations here, anything like that. I'm talking about picking up after themselves, doing their own dishes, keeping their room clean, keeping their stuff put away, doing their own laundry. Teach them how to be self-sufficient with household chores when they are young, and then they'll know how to do it. It will also really help you and help them to identify what their talents are. Several of my daughters stay home and they don't work outside the home. They work inside the home, raising their children. And that takes a skill set. Prepare your kids for that. Prepare your children for being parents. Just a brief personal story that I really want to interject here. I've thought for a long time about why I was so, what this driving force was, why I was so diligent in always making sure that my kids knew what to do. When I was 15, I lost my mom. It was a tragic death. It was a suicide. I was the oldest child. I was the oldest child of 4. It was extremely challenging for a family. Something has always been in the back of my mind telling me that by the time my kids are 15, I want them to know how to run a household, how to do it all, how to shop, clean, cook, obviously not support themselves financially, but household management, money management. By the time they were 15, I wanted them to know how to do that so that if life ever had an unexpected turn, they would be more prepared. It would put them more in the driver's seat than the victim seat. This is just paid off in spades, having this kind of a mindset. You want them to know how to do everything when they graduate high school. You want them to know how to do everything earlier, if you can. And then the last thing that I want to talk about, this is a tough one for some people. It wasn't tough for me because I was raised this way. When they turn 18, let them go. Stop the counsel, stop the unsolicited advice, stop the financial support. Your kids are capable of putting themselves through college because you've already taught them how to save money. You've already taught them how to not go into debt. They can work. One of my daughters, who graduated actually towards the end of her 20s, she would go to school for a year and take off a year and work, and go to college for a year and take a work off. That's how she made it work. Different kids had scholarships or student loans that they paid off. It can be there can be a variety of ways to do it, but the main thing is that they need to be supportive, and your counsel needs to stop unless they ask you for it. This is what it signals to your kid. Listen now, it doesn't signal that you don't love them or that you don't want to take care of them anymore or that you are abandoning them. What it signals to them is that you believe in them, that you think they are competent, that you believe in their decision-making abilities, that you know they can go out in the world and do whatever they want to do with their lives. They will feel your confidence in them. It's not a turnoff. It's an excitement to know that your parent believes in you so much that they're going to let you make your own decisions. Here's the second big piece of that. Let them fail without swooping in and rescuing them. Now, I'm not talking about life or death situations. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about dumb financial mistakes, dumb relationship mistakes sometimes, dumb living arrangements. Let them make their own mistakes and then let them learn from those mistakes. The only time you interject is when they come to you for counsel, or again, if it's something life-threatening. But keep your mouth shut. There'll be plenty of times when you want to speak up and say, oh, you think you want to take a second look at this or that? Don't do it. Don't do it unless they come to you for counsel. You will give a vast message of support just by letting your kids live, fall, pick themselves up again. Think about when your kids are babies, right? Your child, you start to kind of coach them how to stand up. You sometimes stand up on the furniture, stand up and touch the furniture to give themselves a little bit of leverage. But if you carried your child that entire first 2 years of their lives, they're not going to know how to walk. They won't do it. They won't know how to do it. It's the same way when they're adults. If you keep swooping in and rescuing them from every financial hole they get in or every hole that they dig themselves into, they're never going to know how to get themselves out because they're always going to think that mommy or daddy are going to be there to bail them out. That has to stop if you're going to raise independent kids. It's got to stop. Okay, I've got just a couple more closing remarks here. Just in general, some truths that parents need to hold true. You need to be unified as parents, mom and dad. If you're married, divorced, never married, whatever the circumstances are, you need to stand unified. You will disagree from time to time, but you disagree in private. Your child needs to see you standing unified so that they know that there's not any way that they're going to be playing one parent off the other, because kids can be kind of tricky sometimes. Remember that you're not raising best friends. You're not raising your child to be their best friend. You are raising them to be healthy, happy, independent, moral, productive people in society. That's what you want. That's the way that you want to raise your children. Everyone wants that. You have to take concerted efforts right now if you're going to make sure that that happens. You are raising capable adults. Independence is not abandonment. It's preparation. Okay? It's preparation. It's not abandonment. This is just an added note for the mega wealthy. This is going to be exceptionally challenging for you because chances are there's been so much wealth in your past generations that you don't know how to do any differently. You can, but it's going to be tougher for you because it's going to be much more difficult for you to stand your ground. Um, your kids will expect to live the same kind of lifestyle that you're living. That's the big challenge. I see my light just died, so that's my cue to pop on out of here. Remember that you can do this. You can teach them how to earn their way. You can teach them how to make their way without you having to micromanage every single little thing. Please drop me a note. Let me know what you think about all this. I just wanted to say that if your children, the wealthy families, if your children decide that they want to lead that kind of a lifestyle, that's great. But let them contribute to that. That should be a life that they're funding, not you. That makes sense. Okay. Okay, I'm going to rattle off just one more little closing line of thoughts here. Your job as a parent is to not make your kids' life easy. Your job is to make your kids capable of work, capable of failure and recovery. They're going to make mistakes. Let them make it. If you want confident, resilient kids, you're going to have to be brave enough to raise them differently. I'm telling you, this is going against the grain in society today, but you can do it. You can't start it later. You can't start it someday. You have to start it today. All right. I'm Gigi Fairbanks, and this is 61 Unfinished.